It wasn't a fire or a flood that brought our house down. It was a single piece of paper, signed with a pen. This is a foreclosure notice. It meant the house I grew up in, the home my father believed would be his safe place in retirement, was being taken from us. He'd signed a reverse mortgage thinking it was the key to security. Instead, it was a trap. But hidden in the dozens of pages he signed was one single sentence, a time bomb that would take everything. My father was a good man. He worked with his hands his entire life, providing for us, building our world inside the four walls of that home. He believed in the promise of a secure retirement. The commercials he saw on late-night TV, the ones with the trustworthy smiling actors, spoke right to that dream. They promised financial freedom, tax-free cash, and the chance to stay in his home for the rest of his life. For a man who had given everything and just wanted some peace, it sounded perfect. But that promise was a carefully built illusion. The loan that was supposed to save him ended up taking everything he'd worked for. It ate the equity in our home, the value he'd spent a lifetime building, and in the end, it took the house itself. This is the story of how that nightmare, disguised as a dream, came true. And it all started with a trusted face on a television screen. To really feel the weight of this, you have to understand what that house meant to us. It was the center of my world. I can still smell my mom's kitchen on a Sunday morning, a mix of coffee, bacon, and her lemon pound cake. For years after she was gone, if the sun hit the kitchen just right, I could almost swear I still smelled that lemon polish she used. That smell, for me, was the smell of being safe. It was the smell of her. I remember her saving up for 6 months to buy a new washing machine. The day it was delivered, she just stood there with her hand on it, so proud. She made this house a home. In the garage, a cathedral of sawdust and oil, my dad taught me how to build. We spent a whole summer constructing a pinewood derby car on his workbench. That space, filled with the ghosts of past projects, was where our bond was forged. And I remember the two of them, my parents, dancing barefoot on the back porch during a summer rainstorm, laughing like kids. This house wasn't just wood and nails. It was their love story. Outside, an old oak tree stood in the front yard. Dad planted it the year I was born. We marked my height on its trunk every single birthday. On my 16th birthday, we had a party under that tree. I remember the string lights he hung from the branches, my mom bringing out cake, the whole family celebrating a milestone in the one place that felt permanent. Dad's principles came from his own parents who lived through the Depression. Their motto was simple: work hard, pay your bills on time, and never owe anyone a dime. He spent 40 years as a mechanic. He cherished the day he made that final mortgage payment. That house wasn't just an asset. It was proof he'd built something that would last. My mom always used to say, "A home isn't what you own, it's what you build together." That house was his legacy. But the retirement he saved for wasn't the one he got. His pension was less than he'd hoped. Healthcare costs soared. The house, once his fortress, started to feel like a financial anchor. Have you ever seen someone you love carry a secret worry? That was my dad. Property taxes, insurance, repairs, the costs became sources of deep anxiety. He was a proud man. He would never ask for help or be a burden on me. He just wanted his independence. It was that fierce desire to stand on his own 2 feet that made him the perfect target. But the dream wasn't dead yet. It was waiting to betray him. It started with the TV commercials. "You see this guy?" he'd say, pointing to a kind-faced celebrity he'd watched for years. "He's a good man. If he says it's safe, it must be." I'll never forget that. He wasn't just sold a loan. He was sold a story by someone he trusted. He'd quote the actor, "He said it was safe." I believed him. For months, he kept the glossy brochure with the actor's smiling face on his nightstand, like a reminder of the promise. Do you know if your parents have looked into this? Have they seen the same ads? He finally called the number on the screen. The person on the phone was a master. They didn't call it a loan. They called it a program for seniors, a government-insured benefit. They explained that since he was over 62, he could get a lump sum of cash, all while staying in his home. And the magic words, "No more monthly mortgage payments." He had to do a mandatory counseling session over the phone. I remember asking him about it later. He waved it off. "Don't worry, kiddo," he'd said with a confident smile. I read the fine print. That sentence haunts me. I thought I was being a good son. I thought he was fine. I never asked the hard questions. And now I live with that. For a guy like my dad, the counseling was just a box to check. I should have been there. I should have read every page. But I was busy, and I trusted him. He signed the papers. A few weeks later, a chunk of money showed up in his bank account. The relief was instantaneous. He paid his property taxes. He finally fixed the leaky roof and even bought a new furnace. He seemed younger, more relaxed than I'd seen him in years. I remember him telling me, a huge smile on his face, "The best part is, son, I never have to worry about being kicked out. This home is mine until the day I die." It felt like a home run. But the relief was built on a lie, and the foundation was about to crack. The click of the pen signing the papers, the sound of a hammer fixing the roof, the hum of the new furnace kicking on, and my dad's voice full of relief. I never have to worry again. Then silence. We thought he had found the answer. We thought he was safe. But the trap was already set, and we never heard it click. If I'd read that one sentence in the contract earlier, maybe this story would have ended differently. That was year one. In year two, the cracks began to show. And then, everything changed. A reverse mortgage is an active, growing debt. The loan balance wasn't just the money he got. It was that money plus a mountain of compounding interest and fees, eating away at the home's equity every single day. The first hint of trouble was a formal, aggressive letter demanding proof of his property tax payment. The next was a nightmare over homeowners' insurance, when the lender tried to force-place an insanely expensive policy on him during a tiny coverage gap. I realized then that if you fall behind on taxes or insurance, the lender can demand the entire loan back. The promise of no monthly payments is a dangerous half-truth. Then came the problem that changed everything: my father's health. A fall led to a hospital stay, then rehab. For his own safety, he moved in with me while he recovered. We thought it would be temporary. We had no idea we'd just tripped the biggest wire in the contract. The time bomb was a clause called the principal residence rule, buried in the fine print. I finally found it, deep in the loan documents, and my hands started to shake. It states the loan is only good as long as you live in the house. If you are out of the house for more than 12 consecutive months, even for medical care, the lender can call the entire loan due. How did we miss this? Would you have caught that clause? Or would you have signed, like we did, trusting the smiling man on the screen? We blew past that 12-month mark without knowing it mattered. We were focused on doctors and physical therapy, not the terms of a loan from years ago. We thought that was the worst part. It wasn't. The letter came on a Tuesday. It wasn't a friendly reminder. It was a formal, due and payable notice. Because the house was no longer his main residence, the entire loan balance was due. Now my blood turned to ice. The number they demanded was huge. It was the original cash, plus years of compounding interest, insurance premiums, and servicing fees. The total had devoured almost all the equity in our family home. I spent hours on the phone trying to reason with them, but I was talking to a wall. I'll never forget what one agent told me, his voice completely flat. "It's just a system, sir." Every door was locked. The 30 days came and went. Then the next envelope arrived, a legal filing. Notice of foreclosure sale. I scanned the document and one sentence was bolded in red. Sale date, June 14th. My parents' wedding anniversary. My father, already frail, just seemed to shrink. The shame was the worst part for him. That evening I saw him looking at a photo of my mom. He whispered so low I could barely hear it. "I tried, Carol. I swear I tried." He felt like a fool. He felt completely betrayed. He'd been sold a dream of security, but the notice in my hand was the death certificate for that dream. But the horror was just beginning. After the notice, everything became a blur of grief and logistics. Emptying a house that had been lived in for 40 years is a brutal process. Every weekend, we sorted through a lifetime. The house felt like a tomb. In the quiet, I could almost hear the ghost of my mother humming in the kitchen, the way she always did. Now the silence was deafening. While opening a box labeled "Kitchen," I found the first mug my dad ever bought my mom, a cheap ceramic thing from a seaside vacation. It felt heavier than it should. We had to decide what to keep, what to sell, what to throw away. The outlines of his tools on the garage wall felt like shadows of my father's own ghost, a life's work about to be erased. I opened my mom's closet and her dresses were still there, perfectly preserved. But there was no room for them where we were going. Tucked inside an old shoebox, I found a stack of anniversary cards, years of them. The last one he ever gave her read, "For my Carol. This house is nothing without you. You are my home." It was just another thing we had to leave behind. My dad was a ghost through all of it. One afternoon, I found him in the living room watching a dusty VHS tape labeled Christmas '92. On the screen, a younger version of him was laughing, a younger me was opening gifts, and my mom was smiling at the camera. He just sat there, silent, as the dream played out in front of him. Later, he walked to the trash, the smiling actor's brochure in his hand, and threw it away, his own hands shaking with shame. My own child asked me, "Why is Grandpa so sad? Why does he have to live with us now?" How do you explain that to a kid? The day before the auction, Dad asked if we could go back one last time. Not to fight, but just to say goodbye. The day we handed over the keys was gray and overcast. We did one last walkthrough. The third stair still creaked. The silence was absolute. Dad walked out to the oak tree in the front yard. He placed his hand on the rough bark, right where we used to mark my height. He whispered something too quiet for me to hear, and then we left. We locked the door for the last time and walked away. I couldn't look back. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't just our story. It was a warning for everyone. It's been a few years. Was this trap designed to confuse people like my dad? A USA Today investigation found that nearly 100,000 reverse mortgages failed in the years following the Great Recession. My dad was one of them. Lesson 1. No monthly payments is a dangerous lie. You're still on the hook for property taxes, homeowner's insurance, and all repairs. Fail at any of that, and you can be foreclosed on. Lesson 2. The debt only grows. It eats away at your home's equity until there's nothing left. The legacy my father wanted to leave us was drained away by fees and interest. Lesson 3 is about the triggers. Being out of your house for more than 12 months, even for your health, can make the entire loan due. The death of the borrower triggers it. These aren't just financial terms, they're traps that spring when you're most vulnerable. So what can you do? First, get involved. If your parents are considering this, you need to be in the room. Second, look at every other option first. Downsizing, state tax assistance, family help. Third, and I'm begging you on this one, have the awkward conversation about money with your aging parents now. My dad wanted to pass down a house. Instead, I'm passing down this warning. But it's what we do with that warning that defines what happens next. If this story hit home for you, if it made you angry, if it made you cry, then please help us protect others. First, help me spread this warning. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Have you been through this? Or did someone warn you in time? Your story could be the one that saves another family. Second, and this is the most important thing I can ask, please share this video. One share could save someone's home. Send it to your parents. Send it to your kids. You could literally prevent another family from going through the heartbreak that mine did. It wasn't a fire or a flood that brought our house down. It was trust, and they burned it to the ground. I drive by that house sometimes. There's a new car in the driveway, new laughter in the windows, but it's not ours anymore. My father still asks about the oak tree. I told him it's still there, but it's not the same. Nothing is. I can't get our house back. I can't undo the pain my father felt. But they couldn't foreclose on our family. We're still here. Home isn't four walls anymore. It's the three of us at the dinner table in our small apartment, piecing things back together. My son listening to his grandpa's stories. It's a different kind of legacy. It's bittersweet, but it's strong. My father spent 40 years paying for that house. A single signature on a reverse mortgage took it all away. Don't let that happen to you. Watch this next for another gripping tale of retirement gone wrong, plus the lesson you can't afford to miss.